It's showtime.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
We are professional wrestling.
I'm building an alliance.
You are tuned into
The absolute top of the mountain, the ultimate professional wrestling.
Alliance-wrestling.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the pre-party with your boy J. Cal. What is up? Very happy to have you guys here. This is a presentation of Alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Like I said, my name is J. Cal, and what a weird week we've had, and I keep saying that because every week has been more weirder than the next. Have you guys seen these numbers from NWA Shockwave? Mind-blowing. Nick Aldis finally gets that NWA 10 pounds of gold out there. It's defended. It's back, baby. All as we approach the end of the year. And what better time to talk about the NWA than the end of the year, because this year, I mean, someone put it in the ground. Oh, you guys can't see that. Bang. Put a bullet in it, because this year has been awful. And as we rapidly approach the end of 2020, I think nobody more than the National Wrestling Alliance would like to put this year to bed. Yeah, like I said, it's been a very interesting week, and you start thinking about the National Wrestling Alliance throughout this year, and it's been a roller coaster, but not just a roller coaster that goes ups and down, because I mean, there have been a few ups. I can't say that there hasn't been a few ups, but there's been very much a downward spiral. But I think we're starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. If for no other reason, the 10 pounds of gold is being defended yet once again. The relationship with AEW and the Women's World Champion seems to continue to grow. And I'm not really sure what's going to happen next. 2021, I mean, I'd like to be as optimistic as anybody. I would like to tell you that in 2021, things will be different. Things are going to change. I can feel it. But the realist in me has to look at things from an objective manner. I have to look at things from the bigger picture, the brighter, bigger picture. And we have to be realistic about what our expectations are for the National Wrestling Alliance in the midst of this global pandemic, this COVID-19, this pandemic pause. It's impacted so many different independent wrestling promotions. The WWE doesn't feel it. I mean, I guess they do to a degree. WrestleMania was canceled, or not canceled, but, well, WrestleMania belongs in stadiums, and it was in the Performance Center. It has impacted wrestling all across the board. So we have to be realistic with our expectations. We have to temper everything back. We can't expect for Nick Aldis to go out there and defend the belt, 40 times in 2021. He defended it 5 times in 2020. And, unless we're pleasantly surprised by some year-end show with the NWA or, some sort of surprise title defense, that's going to be it for 2020. Which, again, these numbers are reminiscent of, World War II numbers. Which, I mean, look, that's fair. We're facing a global pandemic. That's fair. But with that being said, we have to continue to move forward. And, unrelated to the NWA, but in some regards related, All Elite Wrestling recently crowned new champion Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega took the AEW title and headed to Impact, where essentially he's put a target, a bullseye, if you will, on champions from across that brand. I mean, he recently was in Mexico this weekend for AAA, defending his Mega Championship there, and the storyline, at least seemingly, is going to be that Kenny Omega is going to be a title collector, a champion collector. And although it's kind of fun to speculate, 10 pounds of gold, the most prestigious title in the history of professional wrestling. Wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be amazing if Kenny Omega knocked on that door? Kenny Omega has won championships all across the country. His pedigree speaks for itself. You don't have to be a fan of the wrestler. You don't have to be a fan of his moveset to be a fan of what this man has accomplished in professional wrestling. Holding multiple championships in Japan, not just in New Japan, not just in DDT, but All Japan Pro Wrestling as well. Holding not only junior heavyweight championships and tag team championships, but also the IWGP World Championship. Something to be said for that. He currently holds the AAA Mega Championship. He currently holds the AEW World Heavyweight title. And I think it would be at least fun to fantasy book the idea of Kenny Omega knocking on the door of the National Wrestling Alliance, knocking on the door of the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion, the man who calls himself the real World's Champion, the National Treasure, Nick Aldis. 10 pounds of golden leather. Scrap Iron Adam Pearce called her Sweet Charlotte. A legacy that started in 1948. 72 years in the making. A title that has survived wars and pandemics and promotion closing and lawsuits and monopoly allegations, and survived champions like Luthez. It's survived by, Orville Brown. It's survived by Ric Flair. It's survived by Gene Kiniski. It's survived by Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Gerald Briscoe, Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr. You think that's enough for me to stop? No, I'll keep going. Ricky Steamboat, Sting, Jeff Jarrett, Blue Demon Jr., Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, Steve Corino, Shinya Hashimoto, Dan the Beast Severin. I can keep going, guys. The NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship has the fortitude, the longevity. It is literally the trophy that the that the WWE, what is Triple H's title with the WWE? I'm sure it's some sort of like executive producer. Anyways, it's the title that hangs in his office. So it's no surprise to me that the NWA would be really on the at least at the very least a topic of discussion for Kenny Omega because of its history, because of its tradition. And let's be honest, Kenny Omega is the guy to do it. He's held championships all over the world. I mean, the only other guy that I could think of would be like, Daniel Bryan. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make is if Kenny Omega were to, say, invade the NWA, there's not a whole lot to invade at this moment in time. NWA Power has been on hiatus since January of 2020. This year. I can't believe it's still a year. The NWA has been on hiatus since then, and there isn't a whole lot to invade, but a one-on-one matchup between Nick Aldis and Kenny Omega would certainly put eyeballs back on the brand in the same way that put eyeballs on the brand when Cody challenged Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold at All In 2018. It certainly would bring more eyeballs to what's happening in the NWA, and right now is the time to do it, because there's absolutely nothing going on for the NWA right now. And we've seen it with Serena Deeb winning the NWA World Women's Championship from Thunder Rosa on Primetime Live. Serena Deeb is on TV on a mostly consistent basis with All Elite Wrestling, defending or showcasing the Burke Championship, right? She's on TV every week, mostly, and that title, that presence, the NWA name is in the voice of Jim Ross, in the voice of Excalibur, in the voice of Taz, and Tony Schiavone, excuse me. So each week, the NWA is getting publicity by being associated with All Elite Wrestling. Now, look. Some people think that I hate Nick Aldis, which couldn't be further from the truth. Some people think I dislike Nick Aldis, and again, that's a false statement as well. I feel like Nick Aldis is a phenomenal champion, and when the NWA is firing on all cylinders, there might be nobody as good as Nick Aldis. Hell, he proved it. He proved it last week in Grimsley, Tennessee, taking on the son of Flying Brian Pillman Jr., in a match that was pretty well received. I got to watch fan cam highlights of it, and although the match wasn't the most exciting match I've ever seen, it was far from pedestrian. Nick Aldis sounds like a champion, looks like a champion, carries himself like a champion, but unfortunately, without the NWA running at the moment, it's kind of being wasted. And I feel like if somebody were to perhaps take that next step and take that title to All Elite Wrestling and let Kenny Omega put a little bit of shine on that championship for a while, because we don't know when NWA Power is going to return. Let's be frank. We don't know what's next for the NWA, period. I don't know if they know what's next for the NWA. Unfortunately, with this global pandemic, live wrestling events are kind of a thing of the past right now. Now, I know, Mission Pro Wrestling just had their event with an audience. SWE Wrestling Fury in Texas just had a show with an audience. But that's not quite the norm, is it? Grimsley, Tennessee just had a show with fans. I mean, that's where Nick Aldis was. So, while the NWA is restructuring, reorganizing, Kenny Omega has a storyline where he is the world's heavyweight champion for All Elite Wrestling. If there was some sort of a unification bout or a title for title match, I'm not going to be the one to say no. I'm not going to be the one to say I don't want the NWA associated with that, because at least it would give the NWA a vehicle to promote itself, to get ready for what's next. So, we are huge NWA supporters here. We're the hashtag NWA fam. Nobody has been podcasting longer about the NWA than your boy J Cal here. And so don't let my thoughts on the NWA sway you. I'm not here to put a bad taste in your mouth. I'm not here to put the National Wrestling Alliance down. I am just giving a realistic opinion of someone who's been covering the brand for 14 years. And I will tell you this, that at this moment in time, Nick Aldis, as great of a champion as he is, cannot carry the brand by himself. And without a proper distribution, without television, without live events, there's not a whole lot to cover. So take that trophy, take that prize, take the NWA 10 pounds of gold, and put it on someone who can. And this isn't forever either. This isn't something I think should be done for life. I think this should happen for a few weeks, a few months, maybe even until the NWA power is set to return. In the meantime, you have an NWA national champion in Trevor Murdoch. You have an NWA TV champion in the Pope Elijah Burke, all of whom could certainly benefit from spotlight, from the NWA spotlighting these talents. Yes, DKM, I did remember my sound this time. Thank you very much. I'm going to go through the comments here. I see a lot of you guys are in here. I'm seeing some first-time faces. Jimmy from Long Beach, what is up? Glad to have you here on the show. Lamb, yes, it is Tuesday. Thank you for being here. Lamb brings up Austin Aries, who 3 years ago was a championship collector. Hell, I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, a part of the Ring Warriors television taping, and it was a spectacle to see Austin Aries with not only the Impact Championship, but he also had the World Series Wrestling title, and I can't even remember all the belts that he had, but it was very impressive. Very impressive. And if for Kenny Omega to come out here and do the same, I mean, it's a guy who's humble enough to do it, who could pull it off. And again, he's got the pedigree. You know, no disrespect to Austin Aries, but he does not have the pedigree that Kenny Omega has. Wrestling with the MMA is here. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. We're also streaming on Twitch, so if you prefer to watch us on Twitch, you can do that as well. Twitch.tv/The Alliance Blog. And let's see. And I'm just reading your comment right now. Lamb's son says, due to ROH not having their world champion due to travel restrictions, Nick Aldis could wrestle in Ring of Honor with the title and face EC3, right? I mean, he 100% can. I don't believe there are travel restrictions for Rush. If Rush, I believe, lives in Mexico, there are no restrictions in travel between the United States and Mexico. You could easily fly across the border. As we saw this weekend, AAA had Brian Cage, had Leo Rush, and and of course Kenny Omega competing down in AAA. There's no problem getting into Mexico. I was in Mexico just a few weeks ago. The U.S. Mexican border is closed for foot traffic, but you can certainly fly across without any issue whatsoever. But with that being said, you know, a lot of people are discussing where the NWA fits in the grand scheme of things. Now, let's not forget that Ring of Honor relationship was an integral part of what they were planning in 2020. Now, you got to remember, if we can go back in the time machine here and look at what the NWA was doing at the end of 2019, right? We had Marty Scurll, the Villain, appear on the last NWA pay-per-view of 2019 and basically call out Nick Aldis. They literally sent Flip Gordon to challenge Nick Aldis for the World's Heavyweight Championship at Hard Times. And there was a feud brewing. There was a feud developing that they were going to square off in a Ring of Honor ring. Excuse me, they were going to square off in the NWA at Crockett Cup 2020. But there were interludes between the National Wrestling Alliance and Ring of Honor throughout the whole thing. You got to remember Strictly Business, the trio of Nick Aldis, Thomas Latimer, and of course Camille invading multiple Ring of Honor shows. When Ring of Honor came to Atlanta, Nick Aldis came out there and made a statement. He teamed up with the the Ring of Honor World Champion Roosh to take on PCO and sorry about the camera, guys. To take on PCO and Marty Scurll. In fact, he was supposed to have a match against against PCO in Lakeland, Florida. So there was all kinds of matches starting to come into play with Ring of Honor. But we know that the speaking out movement, along with COVID-19, has really changed a lot of the focus for wrestling promotions. Ring of Honor has seemingly pivoted from their time with Marty Scurll, who was set to be the head booker for the promotion, and has really kind of changed direction it was heading. But that doesn't mean that they can. It doesn't mean that they can't include Nick Aldis in those plans, and it doesn't mean that they can't pivot as well. There's still opportunity for a Nick Aldis PCO match. There's still opportunity for a Roosh versus Nick Aldis title for title match. So there's a lot of things that could happen. And again, I really think we're at a time and place that this is all new stuff. This is all new territory. Wrestling has to pivot on what it has been in the past and what opportunities are in front of them now. Again, if down the road the NWA chooses to run with that match with Marty Scurll, I mean it's possible. But they could also continue that feud in Ring of Honor with Roosh, or continue that feud with PCO. There's a lot of ways this could still go. I think it's actually more realistic to think that the NWA could continue its working relationship with Ring of Honor as opposed to forging some sort of working relationship with AEW that is now working with Impact. Or, I've heard somebody say, specifically Major League Wrestling, that they thought the NWA and the Major League Wrestling would be a good marriage, if you will. And the reason being is that the promotions are so similar in terms of size and stretch. Now, where MLW has like TV deals, not just in the United States, but the United Kingdom and really all over the world. They have distribution on Danza. They have distribution on Fubo Sports. Excuse me if I'm not saying it correctly. In fact, I actually had a list of it right here if it's still on my computer, which it doesn't appear to be. Oh, wait, yeah, here it is. So, I mean, MLW is on DAZA, Fubo Sports, BN Sports, both in U.S. and Canada, in English and in Spanish. They're streaming on YouTube every Wednesday at 7 p.m. They're every Wednesday 7 o'clock on Fubo Sports. And then they have deals for shows in the United Kingdom, Brazil, Ireland, Africa, Middle East and North Africa, Poland, France, Puerto Rico, and I don't even know where Mauritius is. Mauritius? So, I mean, MLW does have a lot of a huge outlet for the programming, and I think the NWA could benefit from some sort of working agreement with them. But I think to the NWA's benefit, Ring of Honor really makes a lot more sense. Ring of Honor has similar distribution all over the United States through Sinclair Broadcasting. All those Ring of Honor shows appear all over Sinclair. All the former Fox Sports from the West Coast to the East Coast have all become Sinclair Broadcasting stations, and Ring of Honor appears on just about all of them. So I really think, instead of people hoping for the NWA to work with AEW or to forge some sort of relationship with Impact, I think realistically, Ring of Honor is where they should go. Although I do, like I said, hear a lot of people talk about MLW. But let's get to some of your comments, because you guys are talking and I love it. Dave Scooby says, Aldis dropping hints about Best in the World. Is that a hint about Jericho or the Ring of Honor pay-per-view? I'll be honest, I think Jericho is very unrealistic. Chris Jericho is a legend in this business, and again, he is aging out of the business, but he's still very much a regular on All Elite Wrestling. He's held that AEW championship. I think when you start talking about guys like Jericho, I don't think that they have time or patience to work with the NWA. Why would they? What's the benefit for Jericho? To win another title? I mean, it would be, as an NWA fan and as a lifelong Chris Jericho fan, I'd be all about it. I would love it. But I just don't see where that benefits any parties. It doesn't benefit Nick Aldis to lose to Chris Jericho. It doesn't benefit Chris Jericho really to win the NWA title, unless it's a bragging rights thing. Because Jericho, let's be honest, he's only got a few more years left in the business where he could still be believable. He could still be believable in the ring. A loss for Nick Aldis to Jericho could be detrimental to Nick Aldis and the NWA. Now, sure, there'd be a lot of people talking about it in the same way that Serena Deep and Thunder Rosa, but I think that would be more of a backfire. Like, wow, Jericho at his advanced age, and I know he's not that old, but at this advanced age beating Aldis, I don't think it does a whole lot for him. But on the flip side, I think Kenny Omega, that's a different story altogether, where the angle right now is he's a title collector. The angle right now is he is the best in the world. So with that being said, I don't know that's the way I'd go. I think Ring of Honor is the better bet. I think the two parties have a lot more that they can benefit from. Now, the NWA had such a thick roster, walking into 2020. I mean, we had the Wild Cards as a tag team. We had Eli Drake and James Storm. We had a thriving women's division with not Serena Deep. We had Allison Kay, Marty Bell, of course, Thunder Rosa. So the women's division was actually looking pretty solid. The tag division needed help, but it was a diverse group of tag teams that could add to Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor could add to the NWA. They could have been mutually beneficial. The Worlds Heavyweight Championship can help lend some credibility in a feud for Ring of Honor and vice versa. But a lot of that's gone. Eddie Kingston's gone. Zicky Dice will be gone at the end of the year. Ricky Starks is gone. Like I said, James Storm, he's finished. Royce Isaacs is finished. So the opportunity for the NWA is a little bit different these days. The genetic makeup of the NWA is a lot different. I mean, from 2020 January to 2020 December, the roster is almost completely different. More of your comments. DKM says, yeah, but with Marty gone, where does it all stand? And that's a great question. We don't know. I still think that there's an opportunity for the two to work together. I think it would be very beneficial for the National Wrestling Alliance, and I think to a degree, giving an opportunity for other Ring of Honor talents to work with the NWA when the NWA returns is mutually beneficial, although all of that right now is on pause until the NWA is promoting more live events. So that might put everything on pause as well. Dave Scooby points out that Villain Enterprise has moved on. PCO, Brody King have moved on. Yeah, and I know that. And I've seen Brody King in New Japan Strong, and he's got a win against Kenta. And, I mean, he's got a big match against Kenta right now for the briefcase for the opportunity to wrestle for the IWGP US Championship. And, I mean, how great would that be for Brody King to win that? DKM says, is Ring of Honor interested? Yeah, and I don't know if that they are. They might not be either. Because you got to remember, the NWA stock has dropped. It's plummeted because they're not producing. What made them special, we'll get into that in a minute, is NWA Power. Because up until NWA Power, it was just another wrestling promotion doing live events. The pay-per-views were doing okay numbers. Nick Aldis certainly had a lot of buzz surrounding him. But what really brought the NWA to the table and made people stand up and notice was NWA Power. And ever since NWA Power has been on hiatus, there's not the same level of buzz. When they started partnering with United Wrestling Network, a lot of NWA fans were excited, but those numbers didn't translate to pay-per-view buys. I mean, I don't have specific numbers, but I know that the front office at United Wrestling Network was hoping for a lot more. DCam says he doesn't think anyone is good for marriage. Well, and that might be too. That might be very true. Woodland Goblin's here. What's up, Woodland? Terry's here. Hey, Terry, how you doing? DCam says, would MLW benefit from a relationship? And again, maybe not. And I'm just reading more of your comments. Jay's been a Jericho fan since we were watching Cena and Joe and UPW. Yeah, Jimmy's actually a buddy of mine. We've been friends for a very, very long time. Let's see. Just reading. Woodland Goblin says, are you guys coming back on Thursday nights with Kevin? We're going to take a knee for the rest of the year. There might be some more content coming on Thursday nights, but for the live shows, the three of us, the three amigos, if you will, DKM, Kevin Douglas, and myself, we are going to take the rest of the year off and kind of come back when we start, when there's something to talk about, really. Okay, so I think I'm caught up with your comments. All right, so cool. So let's go to what. I mean, this is kind of where I've been wanting to talk about, anyways. But NWA in 2020 was not pretty. I mean, 2020 had all the makings for a stellar year for the National Wrestling Alliance. They would crown a new three new champions, actually, at Hard Times. Eli Drake and James Storm would defeat the Rock and Roll Express. Yes, that Rock and Roll Express, along with the wild card to win the NWA Tag Team titles. Thunder Rosa would defeat Allison Kay to win the NWA Worlds Women's Championship. And of course, Ricky Starks would win the TV title tournament and become the first ever NWA television champion in the modern era. After the pay-per-view, Hard Times, the following 2 days, they would tape for 2 days, which would equivalent to about 7 episodes of prime time, not prime time. The 7 episodes would translate to why can't I talk anymore? Let me try that again. So after the pay-per-view, they would film for 2 days, which would have basically become 7 episodes of NWA Power. In that time, they would crown another new TV champion in Zicky Dice. They would have this footage set up for weeks to come. In fact, the show would last until March. All these tapings would give them enough content till March. Then they had also dark matches taped for what would be the circled squared content, right? That was like the American Idol version of the NWA, where they would bring in the talent, have them wrestle, have them cut promos, and let the fans vote on who would stay or who would go. Again, a lot of interesting things that were in the works. They had Circle Squared, 10 Pounds of Gold, and NWA Power. And then also, they had this storyline set up for the world title with Nick Aldis and, of course, Marty Scurll. And then the pandemic hits, and it's the first time since 1918 that a global pandemic has affected the entire world. I mean, it did not only derail the momentum for the NWA, but it damn near closed the promotion altogether. All the planned pay-per-views, dead. All the live events, dead. And I mean, this was nearly a death blow for the NWA. It was said by many times by the NWA front office that the NWA Power wasn't profitable, but mostly it was a vehicle to advertise merchandise and to hawk the pay-per-view. Like, this was a means to an end. Yeah, they made some money on YouTube, but let's be realistic. The money that you make on YouTube is not very much. In fact, I have numbers for that. Let me go to the numbers. It's kind of funny when you think about YouTube and the amount of the potential to make money. I mean, who do you think has promoted the most amount of YouTube videos? Do you think that it's the WWE? You think it's AEW? Wrong. It's Impact. Impact Wrestling has over 15,000 uploads to the YouTube page. The NWA has 333. By comparison, the WWE has 1,500. AEW has 1,600. Ring of Honor has 3,200. The NWA has 333. That falls in line with MLW, who has 409, and United Wrestling Network that has 468. Now, if you take those numbers, and these are all from socialblade.com. You could visit socialblade.com. I am not a gatekeeper. I will tell you where I get my information if you want to do your own research. If you go to what they're making on average per day, not per video, not per view, but on a daily average, what they're making, I won't even talk about United Wrestling Network. But MLW makes anywhere between $16 to $259 a day. Ring of Honor makes anywhere between $32 and $514 a day. WWE makes between $16 and $250 a day. Seems very low for the world's largest wrestling promotion. The NWA makes between $3 and $47 a day. And then this is where it gets awesome if you're promoting these events. Ring of Honor makes anywhere between $32 and $514 a day. But AEW, their YouTube channel's only been around since 2018, makes between $218 to $3,500 a day from YouTube. And Impact makes between $238 to about $3,800 a day. Now, these are highs and lows. Somewhere in the middle is where the reality is. But think about that. These wrestling promotions have this ability to make that much money. Now, the length of the times the channels have been around definitely impact this. How many subscribers a channel has, how often and how regularly they post. And of course, there's that darn YouTube algorithm that I don't quite understand, and I absolutely have no answer for. But Impact has 3 times the amount of videos uploaded than all of them combined. And they earn money that's about neck and neck with AEW. So, you just think about what YouTube generates. And again, a lot of NWA fans are saying, hey, we'll bring power back because, YouTube views will pay for it. No, they don't. They don't. YouTube is strictly a vehicle to promote the pay-per-views and to promote merchandise. That's where they make money. And ticket sales as well. I saw DKM mention that in the comments. Ticket sales as well. But for example, when I went to the first Power tapings, I could have bought a ticket for $20, or I could have bought the VIP tickets for $100 and get to do a meet and greet after the show. You sell enough meet and greets, you're going to pay for the show. But realistically, let's say they only sell 20 of those. $100 a pop, that's $2,000. That pays for some of your talent, if not a good chunk of it. And so, there's a lot more to it than that. Of course, merchandise sales mean a lot, both at the live events and online. And again, yes, there is some income to be made through YouTube, but it's not the end-all be-all. It's not going to make the company anything. It's not going to keep them in business if everything else is failing. So with all the live events canceled, NWA Power not being a profit generator, they made the decision to stop all live events. They tried to use a model to create content that was not in the traditional sense of producing live wrestling. Just didn't work. It turns out, in the infamous words of DKM, wrestling fans want wrestling. Carneyland was a bust. And although I really did enjoy the podcast features that they had, like What's Causing All This, the Eli Drake Show, Inside the NWA, and NWA Girl Power, again, none of these mustered up anything in terms of views. We're talking about 3,000 views when NWA Power was averaging over 100K on each and every view. They started up that Carneyland along with a matching Patreon to get subscribers into the account. They would have early access to these podcasts, but they would also have early access. They'd have access to the podcast early, but they would also be granted access to talent via Zoom chats. And these Zoom chats are still going on as we speak. And the different tiers were like $50 a month for the subscription, $10 a month for the subscription, $5 a month for the subscription. And there were different other benefits like discounted merchandise or sometimes free merchandise. But all in all, none of this really generated a buzz for the NWA. I mean, they even released an entire episode complete with commercials from the Paul Bosch library and only were able to manage to get 30,000 views. The NWA was dealt another blow when Dave Lagana, the NWA executive vice president, and let's face it, the man that was spinning all the plates, stepped down amidst the controversy of the speaking out movement, the same movement that claimed Marty Scurll and a lot of the UK talent, but specifically to the NWA, this would end all the digital offerings and put the NWA basically on hiatus for about 2 months. The NWA started to try to create some energy, create some content, to create some motivation, to create people caring by doing more shows related to stuff that's already been taped. So like they did the 5 on it, the top 5 countdown for the moments with the NWA. Again, this didn't really generate any buzz. True to form, the partnership with the United Wrestling Network kind of did create that buzz that they were looking for. In fact, it got people talking again. Mike Bennett versus Nick Aldis really did have a lot of buzz behind it. So much so that the 10 pounds of gold, which was the first 10 pounds of gold that they produced since December of 2019, had over almost 60,000 views. It felt like the YouTube channel was starting to get back into it, right? It felt like people were starting to care again. And then, of course, all that kind of stopped because there was no more content being created. It just wasn't. Now, the partnership with Primetime Live had a lot of title matches and a lot of, again, buzz. But for the traditional NWA fan who wasn't buying these pay-per-views, there was radio silence. It wasn't until NWA Shockwave started 2 weeks ago that they started getting that fan base back. They started getting people watching again. And like, it's a true to form in terms of they're getting numbers that are similar to what they were getting with NWA Power. We're talking about 100,000 people watched the premiere episode of matches that already happened, that matches were already taped. The second episode is, as of this morning, was at 76,000, which is not quite 100K, but beats everything else they've done. In fact, if you were to ask me, I say let's try to stretch this out as much as we can. Now we know that tonight, on tonight's episode of NWA Shockwave, we're gonna see what do I got here? Oh yeah, we're gonna have Allison Kay versus Nicole Savoy, which is gonna be a great match. Even if I hadn't already seen it, I tell you that's gonna be a great match. You get the tag team match with Eric Watts and the Pope, Elijah Burke. He was D'Angelo De Niro at some point, but Elijah Burke. Fighting against Effie and Zicky Dice. And then, of course, we get the national title match between Trevor Murdoch and Aaron Stevens. But then, if you look at the next episode of what they actually have available, I mean, they've got, in the can, we know from Primetime Live number 6, they've got Elijah Burke and Aaron Stevens for the TV title. We know that's there. Primetime Live number 7, the Women's Championship match between Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa. We know that's there. And then Primetime Live number 9, we've got Stevens and his mystery partner versus James Storm and Eli Drake. Those are the matches we do know that are there. But hold on a minute, because that's one episode. And if, hate to be the spoiler alert, but all the titles change hands on that show. So, far be it from me to tell the NWA what to do, but I'm going to tell the NWA what to do right now. Because we know for a fact that there are several dark matches that never aired from NWA Power. 2 of which are Lindsay Snow, the American Kaiju, taking on Rocky Radley. And of course, it was more tongue-in-cheek, but the 6-man tag match with Eli Drake, James Storm, and Trevor Murdoch versus Aaron Stevens, the Question Mark, and Orange Santa. Orange Santa, for those of you guys don't know, is a fan from Tennessee Titans fan who shows up at the wrestling events because he resembles Santa Claus, dresses up as an orange Santa Claus, and he was at every single Power taping. And this was never meant to make it for air, but I mean, at this point, why not? It actually has some continuity. If they put this match on next week, it kind of builds to that NWA Tag Team title match. But they probably won't, although they should. And if they have carte blanche to use more footage from the United Wrestling Network, well then, I mean, they have the Fred Rosser versus Chris Masters versus James Storm, the triple threat match from Primetime Live episode 5. They've got Lindsay Snow versus Ruby Reyes from Primetime Live episode 10. And of course, the dark match where Nick Aldis has a non-title match. All that should be used to make this into maybe 2 episodes, maybe even 3. But that's me. That's my point of view. I mean, what's yours? Let's look at the comments. I was talking a lot there. Let's see. All right. Going back to your comments. Terry McDermott says he hopes to be here Thursday. Terry, I don't think you'll be with us on Thursday, but I hope you're having a good time. Now they only have Thunder Rosa and Camille on the NWA's women roster. Yeah, and look, why have a roster at all if you're not promoting live events? Our friend DKM has said that many times. Lamb says, does it even make sense to watch NWA Shockwave when most of the matches have been on Primetime Live? I haven't watched one of the episodes yet because I saw 80% of the matches already. Lamb, it's a repeat for you. It's a repeat for me. But what it is for a large majority of the audience, nearly 100,000 people, is brand new content. They haven't seen it. I would venture to guess that Primetime Live did not sell 100,000 pay-per-views. I wish it did for my buddy Dave Marquez's sake, but I'm venturing to guess it did not do 100K. But they got 100K views on Shockwave, which is great for the NWA, but not so much for Dave Marquez. Zicky, or Wrestling with the MMA, says Zicky is now a game show host on Twitch. The show is called Hive Mind, and it premieres tomorrow at 8 Central on Twitch Gaming. And that's great. I mean, everybody's got to pivot, especially during the pandemic. Nick Aldis is doing special interviews for Fight. Zicky Dice is doing live streams on Twitch. I mean, that's great. I'm sure he'd rather be in the ring wrestling, but you know, when the world returns to normal, I'm sure that's what's going to happen. Wrestling with MMA says 15,000 from Impact. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. I just looked today, though. Dave Scooby says, I believe the NWA is putting out the content via Shockwave for those that didn't buy Primetime Live. Right now, any content they can use, they will. See, Dave, Scooby, and I probably share the same brain because we have almost the exact same thoughts. Terry says if he had known that the NWA Shockwave would be reruns, he probably would not have bought Primetime Live. And Terry, you're not alone on that. I mean, it's hard, right? Because I'm the biggest cheerleader for Primetime Live for the United Wrestling Network for my friend David Marquez. I'm also a huge cheerleader for the National Wrestling Alliance. I want these companies to all succeed. I have people who I consider friends working for both companies. But at the end of the day, you know, everyone has to do what they have to do. Primetime Live, we did not get any kind of indication that there would be a secondary show for the NWA featuring matches from Primetime Live. Initially, when it was announced, Primetime Live was supposed to be its own vehicle, and that there would be NWA content shot separately. Now, the relationship with the United Wrestling Network and NWA changed dramatically through this course. I don't even know if they're even still working together, to be quite honest. And you know, we saw towards the end there were no more NWA matches. That's why the Shockwave is going to be held to just maybe 4 or 5 episodes, because there just is no more content for them to use. And I think this should be very eye-opening to the NWA, because although Primetime Live doesn't have 100,000 views on their pay-per-views, the NWA did get 100,000 views with recycled content. Let me say that again. The NWA did not, Primetime Live did not get 100,000 buys doing these weekly pay-per-views, but Shockwave did. There is an NWA fan base that's there that does not want to pay additional content. Maybe they'll buy pay-per-views, maybe they'll buy t-shirts, but they're not going to pay for live weekly wrestling. If the NWA, 2021, they're going to have to do some sort of pivot. They're going to have to make some decisions, whether it be doing a Patreon, not a Patreon, but like a weekly pay-per-view, or again, only making content available on Patreon. They're going to have to figure out something in order to to survive. The partnership with Primetime Live was great for them because it put their talent on a big bright stage, and then they were able to take the best of that and re-release it. If that relationship is no longer going forward in 2021, and they don't have the means to produce television as of now, how are they going to continue to produce content? Furthermore, if they're not producing content, that means they don't have a distribution for merchandising. They don't have pay-per-views right now because they're not promoting live events. So maybe they do just take a knee until this whole pandemic is over, which, I mean, that might be the responsible thing to do, but I think that's going to totally kill their fan base. More of your comments. Wrestling with MMA says that's a nice return for Impact in AEW. Yeah, and again, I don't know how true those numbers are. I mean, these are estimates. So, I mean, they could be right on the money and they could be totally off. Jimmy says the algorithm killed his rap career. Sorry, brother. Shockwave still doesn't air half of the matches from Primetime Live. Right, and I don't think they will because they're only supposed to be airing the NWA matches. And I'm not sure what agreement was worked out between Corgan and Marquez. If I was Corgan right now, I'd call up apologizing to Dave Marquez and saying, hey, how can we make this work in the future? But who knows? I don't know. Woodland Goblin says rap is fading out. Wrestling with MMA said Circle Square 2. Yeah, and I mean, there's still content out there. And going forward for 2021, I know we're running out of time, but that's also what I wanted to approach is like they have to pivot in 2021. I feel like if they do the same things they did in 2019, they're going to end up out of business. They're if they can't produce live wrestling in 2021, Billy Corgan is going to put this on the shelf and forget about it. In 20 years, he'll bring it back like he did with the Smashing Pumpkins. Don't believe me? Go look at the discography for Smashing Pumpkins and see how long of a break he took between producing albums for Smashing Pumpkins. He had other projects, Zeitgeist and Zwan and everything else. It's not above him to put something on the back burner. He's not afraid to do it. I'm afraid for it to happen, but he's not afraid to do it. Dave Scooby says, down the line, if NWA Power returns, should they record dark matches to have a catalog to either show on Patreon or as emergency backups if needed? Yes. Yes. Get to that in a moment. Terry McDermott says, I will enjoy seeing the Aaron Trevor match again, but it's time for Trevor to have a title defense. Yes. Yes. The Patreon is a great idea. They have Patreon right now. They're not taking advantage of it. In fact, I don't know why people are still paying for Patreon, to be quite honest with you, because as a lifelong fan of the NWA, even when it kicked off, I didn't see value in it. So I can do Zoom calls with a talent? Cool. Then what? I can see the shows a day early? Half the time I can't even watch the shows the day of. DKM says, how many monthly things can I pay for? Again, you're not wrong, but they have to figure out something. And so here's where it comes down to. In 2021, they have to pivot, right? They have to make a decision that's going to be hard because they're either going to have to produce these events knowing that they're going to lose money and put them back on YouTube and do an NWA Power without an audience or a limited audience and know that they're just going to lose money, or they're going to put it in the ground. Because they can't keep doing what they did this year. It just didn't work. We talk about the world's heavyweight champion. We talk about the top prize in professional wrestling, and it was defended 5 times. That doesn't work. It can't be the top prize if it was defended 5 times. It's a black eye. And Nick Aldis is a great champion, but to defend the title 5 times, even during a global pandemic, is unacceptable. And there were opportunities to defend the title more than 5 times that either the NWA or Nick Aldis said no to. That's a black eye. And the NWA, you can't keep comparing the NWA to the Ric Flairs of the world, to the Harley Races of the world, to the Jack Briscoes, you can't do any of that if they're not doing live events. Adam Pearce defended that title. I get it wasn't during a global pandemic, but there are safe places for wrestling. Hell, our champion defended on Thursday. Hell, there's more than just that promotion, 127 Pro Wrestling out there. Without the title defenses, the title becomes meaningless. If the title's meaningless, the promotion's meaningless. They have to pivot. They have to pivot. So, for 2021, what do? Look, they need to get out somewhere. I mean, how much could it be to rent a building for a month, right? Rent a venue, rent a gymnasium, rent a something. Go in there, live in a bubble, create a bubble. The NBA did it. It worked out for them. Do not just 1 day of taping, not just 2 days of taping, not just 3 days of taping. Do weeks of tapings. Give you enough content for 6 months, 7 months, just in case things don't get back to normal. Reinvigorate these partnerships with Ring of Honor. Reinvigorate these partnerships with AEW. Reinvigorate these partnerships with the United Wrestling Network. Of course, PTL's on pause right now as well. When it comes back, that relationship should be reforged. They need to figure something out. It was a great platform for the NWA, as we see with Shockwave. When NWA Power returns, I don't think Shockwave should disappear. And when the NWA returns true to form, if they're able to produce content for a pay-per-view program like NWA Power, if that's what they end up settling on, they could still have an outlet for fans who aren't willing to pay. Shockwave. And you could still have these storylines and matches, maybe clips of the matches, maybe just segments of the matches. But obviously content is king. Obviously the NWA needs to pivot. God, I'm so sick and tired of saying that. The NWA needs to pivot. Man, we're 3 minutes till 5 o'clock on the Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. This was easy, guys, because we're all passionate about the NWA. You're here watching this because you care what happens with the NWA. I'm here talking about this because I care what happens with the NWA. But I'm also going to give you a realistic, authentic look at what's going on. I'm not going to throw some gravy on it and make it look nice. It's not nice. This isn't a good time. The NWA is struggling. They're struggling to find what's next for them. And if they have to reestablish their entire identity, then they're going to have to reestablish their entire identity. And I see, again, going back to your comments, Woodland Goblin says the NWA did many gymnasiums in the 90s and early 2000s. Hell, the NWA was built on gymnasiums. They've been doing that forever. Going back to 1948. That's their bread and butter. We all believe, because of Jim Crockett Promotions, that studio wrestling is the end-all be-all for the NWA, but that's not true. And not every single match that Ric Flair wrestled in when his 300 of 365 days was in a was in an arena. A lot of these were in bingo halls. A lot of these were in school gymnasiums. I mean, let's take this whole idea that it has to be in an arena out of the picture. The studio environment should have showed them that there are other avenues to be successful. And again, setting up a building in Atlanta or in Tennessee makes a hell of a lot more sense, considering that's where the world champion lives and like 2/3 of the roster live. And put on an event. Don't invite the fans. Do these shows. Do them in secret. Tape them and just start releasing. Don't tell us it's going to happen. Just boom, drop it in our laps. Surprise the hell out of us. Give us a 2021 that we were just like, oh crap, I can't believe the NWA did that. Because if they want to be competitive, if you want to mention the NWA in the same circles as Major League Wrestling, as Ring of Honor, they have to do this. Otherwise, this is just a vanity project and a waste of time. Terry says he went to an NWA event in the 70s at a rodeo ground. Hell, Dave Marquez was doing rodeo events with Lucha Libre stars and NWA talent in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you like the show, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Share it if you will. If you didn't like it, just don't do anything. That'd be great. You can follow us on all social medias at the Alliance Blog. That's Tumblr. Yes, that's still a thing. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Of course, you're watching us on Twitch and YouTube. Don't forget Twitter. And then, of course, if you say, hey, Alexa, play the Alliance Blog, you'll find us. You can also do that for Google. And I think for Suri, if you ask Suri where we're at, she'll tell you that she'll play us too. Guys, again, thank you so much. I think we've got one more episode before the end of the year. That's where I'm going to talk about how much I appreciate all you guys being here with us. Again, this doesn't happen without you guys. This is so much fun. This is my therapy for every Tuesday, so I can talk about how much I love the NWA. Let's all go flip to the NWA channel, watch Shockwave, and drive those numbers up, and tell them that the Alliance Blog sent you. And just want to say, I know this has been a tough year for a lot of people. Just remember, be positive. Get positive. Stay positive. And I'll see you at the matches.